when I coded tools, I really wanted them to be easy to use because people use them all the time and they want things to be comfortable. They don't want to spend a lot of time in your program. They just want it to work for them.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley in partnership with Leumitech, sponsored by Homeward Ventures, Hippo Insurance, Upwest Labs, Synergy Global, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, Birthright Excel, Serona Partners, and in media partnership with CTech. Welcome to another episode of 20-Minute Leaders. Meet Dani Shpakovsky, Group Leader at WekaIO. Dani is originally a systems developer and security researcher, having served in various roles in the technological unit and 8200. He then pivoted from cyber and for the last 4 years has been working in WekaIO, a storage startup developing the fastest distributed file system in the world, which enables modern workloads to reach their full potential. He first joined as a developer, and in the last couple of years as a team and group leader. In Weka, he is managing the product's control plane, bridging the gap between a highly complex and hard-to-understand product and end users who want simplicity, usability, and user experience. Dani Shpakovsky, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. How are you?
I'm good. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. I love talking, usually, entrepreneur to entrepreneur, investor to investor, engineer to engineer. So you have a really interesting background. You're transitioning from cyber to WekaIO, an incredible Israeli company that's in the storage space. But the really interesting transition, in my perspective, is the transition from, a developer, an engineer, to a team leader. So with the responsibility of leading other engineers, and then a group leader, obviously, with much more responsibility. And I'd love to pick your brain on sort of, what that's like and how that translates into your own personal journey of leadership. But I want you to get me started with Revenge of the Nerds, because I watched that show. And
Really? You did?
I did watch that show. And so I know you better than you think I know you. So tell me a little bit about that experience.
Well, so I was pretty young, I was 12 or 13, I think. And I was at like an institute for gifted children. We went for 1 day a week, and they were looking for people who were also very smart, but also, look good on camera. So because, it's television, of course. And we had some, interviews and stuff like that. And then they chose me and we started filming. So first of all, it's really interesting to be behind the scenes and behind the camera. And the show itself was pretty interesting. We had different tasks. I learned to solve a Rubik's Cube. And I had to face some things that, never faced before. And essentially the way I went down is I went down in a task where we needed to touch like worms and cockroaches and stuff like that. And we were supposed to recognize them and then take them out of like this canister. And I recognized everything, but I could not touch them. It's like my biggest phobia. So that's how I felt. I fell down, and then Rubik's Cube. I solved them really quickly now, but I failed to do that on the show. And at least I wasn't the first to go down. I was like fifth. So
I think that's always the most important milestone, of course. What was that?
Don't get out first.
Was it stressful, fun? What was the experience like for you? As a kid going on a show that is sort of, testing, your intellectual abilities, on television with friends and family, obviously going to be watching this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think I didn't understand the implications at the time. It was just sounded like a fun experience, sounded cool, and the challenges themselves were really cool. So it was fun. But then, I'm a young kid at age 12, 13 again. So when I went out of the show, it was like pretty traumatic. It's like I cried a lot, and it was very difficult to, get torn out of it because it's reality. It's one or two wrong moves and then you go out. So it was difficult to me to accept being in the show for several years. But now I'm pretty open about it, and it's really like just a fun fact.
I love it.
For me. Yeah. And it was also, I will say that it was really interesting to just see how television is being made. You
I'm
don't see that usually, all the testimonials and stuff.
I think that it's it's intellectually fascinating to see a process so complicated take place, and at the end it then is being condensed to mere minutes of entertainment, but there's a whole operation and logistics that goes behind it. So transitioning from that to engineering mindset. So you're an engineer at heart, and in your mind, why engineering? So why computer science? Why engineering for you?
First of all, because it's interesting and it's challenging, like especially in Weka, we solve extremely deep problems. We need to go about doing distributed algorithms, do everything fast, do everything efficient, do everything performant. And it's just interesting. It's interesting to analyze and look at results, look at data, understand that you're doing an impact. Like if I want to improve some algorithm, so I'm looking at data. I understand that right now some process takes 35 seconds, and I think I have an idea of how to make it 2 seconds. So I'm writing my code, then I'm looking at data again. I understand I made an improvement, and I understand I'm giving value to someone, right? So whether it be in the army, where the value is, like national security, and whether it be at Weka, where the value is, someone's doing genomics faster, someone's doing AI faster, improving people's lives. Like we're a platform that allows that.
Right.
So me as an engineer, I'm looking at how what I'm doing is improving people's lives and value for companies.
I love it. And so if you're now going from engineer to a team leader, you're no longer responsible yourself necessarily for all the code that is being deployed, but now you have to actually exert leadership, probably a completely different mindset and work that in your day to day. So was that a trivial thing for you to know that you want to do, that you want to lead teams and you want to be sort of a leader in the engineering world?
So it wasn't something that I initially thought about a lot when I started work and my company. I had some experiences of mentoring people both in the army and in my current company, but the sort of the mindset indeed changes. But it's not that I'm not responsible for code anymore. Like I really am still responsible a lot for a lot of the quality of the code. I'm still doing a lot of code reviews, and I'm still pushing fixes and doing bugs myself. Like I am connecting to customer environments, to production systems, and fixing stuff, when stuff breaks. But the mindset indeed changes. I also I had like a very bad experience transitioning into the role. It was December 2019. I
Wow.
broke an ankle about like maybe 5 days after starting the new role. So was at home for weeks, and
So you
then
you
like
started remote
and
before the rest of the world.
yeah, exactly. Start remote before the rest of everybody. And I'm sitting at home with my broken ankle. And after a few weeks, the pain subsides a little, and then you're just bored. And you're like, I'm supposed to be like leading like 4 or 5 people right now and telling them, like helping them and giving them tasks and stuff like that. And it's not happening. So I started going back to work pretty early, but not not physically, but
Right.
remote. And then March 2020. So I'm just starting to walk again with a cane,
Wow.
and everything closes, and remote becomes the standard.
Wow.
And this is my experience. My first experience leading a team is remote, and it's so different. It's like I'm used to an experience where the team leader sits with people in the room. He sees everything. He sees the problems they're encountering. They're talking about a problem they're experiencing, and you hear it. You can choose whether you want to intervene or not, depending on stuff. Like maybe I want someone to experience the problem on their own and improve, and maybe I want to just like wait. This is gonna waste him a couple of days, and let's just solve this in 10 minutes. Um, and this just disappears, right? Because COVID and everyone's remote. So we tried doing some stuff, like sitting in Zoom rooms together, stuff like that. But it's very, very different.
Very different.
And it's yeah, and even like the experience of think about me as a team leader. So now I'm starting to recruit people. So I did interviews before and at Weka, and now I'm starting to recruit people who never went to the office. And I have a person who's coming to the who I recruited, who did an entire interview process, and his first day in the office is his first time seeing the office.
Incredible.
And
Yeah.
this is I believe very different from what you usually experience as a manager.
I can only
But this is
imagine.
the standard now.
I can only imagine. So if you go outside a little bit and you try to look at yourself, from a third party angle, what type of leader are
Mhm.
you? What type, what is sort of your thought process behind the leadership that you exert? Because I'm sure that as you're so rigorously, working on, in the engineering side, I'm sure that you're also very intentional with the way that you lead others and how you see leadership in your own domain.
Mhm. Yeah, so as a person, I'm a people's person. So I like the technical side, but I also like people, and also my role not only as I don't only lead people like personally, but also my role as a control plane leader is basically having interfaces with the entire company. So
Right.
we got a lot of data plane teams that need our help to expose their features, but we also, I don't know, we're talking with sales because we're doing the licensing, and we're talking with our DevOps because we're setting analytics and we want it managed. So I'm exerting leadership in other directions as well, but being a people's person and being someone who's easy to talk to and fun to talk to, I hope, um, is something that really helps me drive people forward. Because they trust me that I'm making the right decisions, and I want the best for them. Like as a person, I'm looking for people who are, they understand that I care very, very deeply about them as people, and I want to give them tasks that they enjoy, and not necessarily tasks that will bring value, but maybe are extremely boring or not something that's fun to do or something very tedious. So I'm trying to avoid giving such tasks and at least controlling, who's getting what. So they feel like they keep personally developing.
Right.
Like if I have a meta programming task because I want someone to improve their meta programming, and we're working with the language D, which is very meta programming heavy. So I want to make sure that every person on the team experiences this type of programming, not only because it improves the product, but also because it improves them.
Correct.
It's a new paradigm, so I want them to experience it.
I love it. So if you're looking today and you have so many different things that you can spend your time on, and you sort of are responsible for finding the right balance. What do you enjoy most? Where do you get the most kick out of your day?
I think the most kick is still pair programming with someone. I think because it's yeah, because I don't get to do a lot of features alone now, right? If I'm programming by myself, it's to solve a specific bug. It's usually a one-line change or two-line change. Um, but and then when I'm coding with someone from the team, I'm both helping them, teaching them, but also experiencing more of the technical side of what we're doing. And I'm really in love with code and with our code, so just seeing it again and again and again always brings me joy.
I love
So I
it.
believe this is something I really, really enjoy. I also enjoy conversations with um, like candidates to Weka, but not in the early stages, but like after we were already, past interview phases and it's now time to sell the company to them. I really love these conversations where
Yeah,
like, we get to brag a lot about the team, about the company, about the investors, whatever. I love these conversations because we usually have a lot to say. I think these like probably my favorite parts. I also like even when I just started working with Weka, the product was not stable, so doing a lot of escalations and managing a lot of these customer incidents, it was hard. But now that it happens a lot less frequently because the product is a lot more stable, then I'm really enjoying it when it happens, even if it happens middle of the night or early in the morning. It's like it brings me back to like army days where
I
like
love
we're
it.
doing things in unorthodox hours, and it's really similar, because doing stuff with cyber and having to be very meticulous and very detail oriented and understand everything you're doing to the last bit, and modeling everything is something that really translates to what we're doing in production when we're managing storage systems that have petabytes of data on them. So,
Incredible.
and it's really scary. You're connected to a system that has 2 petabytes of used storage, and this is customers' data, and they need it. They really need it. It's business critical for them. So you really don't want to make mistakes.
Right, 100%, and I think that that's a perfect segue. You're in a very unique position, where you're both, working on highly complex technologies, on what the industry today calls deep tech. At the same time, you're working on products that have user interfacing. You have user interfacing products where you have to sort of bridge the gap and this dissonance between the complicated structure of the backend versus the user experience on the front end. So where do you sit with that? And why go that route? Because most people who did Aram in the army, and people that that are engineers like you, they don't necessarily go to this place.
Mhm. Yeah, well, I think even in the army, I really wanted things to be easy to use. It's not only, and easy to use usually also means easy to understand, but not necessarily. Um, but when I coded tools, I really wanted them to be easy to use because people use them all the time, and they want things to be comfortable. They don't want to spend a lot of time in your program. They just want it to work for them. And in Weka, like we got like these three pillars of what the product stands for. So it's like performance, scale, and simplicity. Because storage is complicated. Like you don't want people to, when they need to, they start their workload, they don't want 200 tunables and start, customizing everything to get every bit of performance. They really just want plug and play. And from that perspective, in the team, we're doing the front end of the product, and we're doing like the CLI and the API, and we want everything to be simple for the customer. So whether it means counting their number of clicks they do in the UI, it's interesting because if I see that something that the customer will need to do twice every week, and they need to click 10 times to do it, it's like I don't want them to spend so much time on the product. I just want them to see, sometimes maybe log in, see very high uptime, see very high performance numbers, be happy, have like this bird inside that's chirping. Um, so for me, it's really about doing stuff that the customer likes and finds simple and finds enjoyable.
I
So,
love
and
that.
even if it, by the way, means having like just the product itself, it should look good. It should bring you warm feelings when you look at it, and the color scheme is right, and the pixels are exactly where they need to be, and everything is written very clearly. And when you got an error or something bad happens, like customers just they don't want to call support for every tiny thing, right? They just want the system to tell you what's wrong and how you can fix it. Because
Right.
when you see the system tells you what's wrong, you just and how to fix, you just do it.
I
You don't
think
call anyone.
one of the
Easy.
interesting insights that I've had, on my journey was the fact that transitioning from falling in love with the code to falling in love with the product. And I think that what you're touching on here, the
Mm.
simplicity, it's a great example of that, because we engineers have a tendency to fall in love with code and with the technology. But now your responsibility as a team leader, as a group leader, and overseeing a product, you have to, get people to understand the bigger picture of what they're doing, and not just the specific feature that they're working on, right? So if you had to, give sort of your 2 cents to engineers on what they can do to sort of improve that skill of branching out to 30,000 feet in the air and fall in love with the strategy and the product and see their code as an enabler for that, well, what are some of your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, when you think of a task, you shouldn't think of you shouldn't start by thinking of how I'm going to code this and what's the deep algorithm behind it. But you should start, with the stories, with the use cases, with what the customer's gonna do with this, and how does it fall in line with their flow. Like usually, when you're adding a new feature to something, it's not you're sitting in your little box, but the customer is going to run 7 boxes before your box and then 3 more boxes after it. So you want to think about how the experience looks for them throughout their like journey through your program, right? Because again, there's a very little amount of features that will actually be a standalone feature that the customer just uses, and usually it's part of the flow. So first of all, you must think of the flow. It's really important. And then how will the user see things? How will they experience errors? And always think about the 0.001% that something goes wrong. So for a system like ours, such a bug that happens 0.01% of the times, happens twice a week. So, and then you need to think of these error cases. First of all, how will the customer respond? So what should they do if they encounter such errors? And how will we respond? How to maintain our features? It's also very important. Like you're coming to help the customer that something screwed up. You want to help the customer. How will you be able to help the customer? And this is second. And then reporting and analyzing. And in the control plane, we got like auditing and analytics and statistics. We got load and alerting. We got loads of different types of how the customer is going to see different features. So you want to think about all of them because all of them are important.
I love it. Inspiration. You have to be creative in your work. The company's changing, it's growing very, very quickly. And you have a lot of responsibility to continuously be inspired by things so that you can then exert your inspiration and inspire others around you. Where do you get your inspiration from?
Where do I get my inspiration from? Wow, it's a difficult question, I guess. No, it's a difficult question. So first of all, we got a lot of smart people in Weka. So just discussions with people in Weka gives you a lot of inspiration. People with so much time in the storage industry behind them already. So they understand how people think in that regard. And, like also, I don't think it's a shame to just look at what the competitors do and copy a little, like if I see their front end and it's sick, it has amazing features, like, I don't know, I'm really proud of our backend, but I want improvements in the front end. I want their features. It's not a shame to copy and do things like others have done before you, even if they're your competitors. But usually when I'm looking at such a thing, I'm also looking like, how can I do this like at least like 10% better? So this looks just a little bit more excellent than what they did. So, I have something to show off. So it's not just their features in our colors, but we also improved upon it and did something more. I think major inspirations.
It was Picasso. It was Picasso said, and then followed by Steve Jobs. Good artists copy, great artists steal, and I think the term "steal" here is a little misleading. but there, there's a reason why Picasso and Steve Jobs exactly. And at the end, it's about providing the right value. And obviously, in the world of deep tech and complicated software that you're working on, the role of the front end of the user experience is just to enable the cool things to take place and to make it accessible. That is at the end. And Dani, I really want to thank you for taking the time to come here and sharing your own insights and leadership within organizations as an engineer. I think it's fascinating. And thank you for providing me some good minutes of entertainment growing up and thinking why am I not good enough to be where he is. So thank you for the inspiration and the motivation for that. And stay safe and stay healthy. Best of luck with WekaIO.
Thank you so much for having me. Goodbye.